Kenosha, Wisconsin's district attorney's office will not bring charges against the police officer who shot Jacob Blake in August. Rustin Sheskey, a white officer, shot the 29-year-old black man 7 times in the back, paralyzing him from the waist down. Mola Lengi is covering this story for us from Kenosha and has the latest.
They allow a police officer to rain down terror on our communities. It's unjust.
Jacob Blake's uncle spoke moments after DA Michael Gravely said he would not criminally charge Officer Rustin Sheskey for shooting Blake 7 times.
As Americans and the citizens of Kenosha and the world as a whole must get this right, not just for little Jake, but for all the little Jakes this will impact.
Gravely said none of the officers at the scene would be charged, as he could not disprove Officer Sheskey's claim of self-defense when he and the other officers responded to a domestic dispute last August. The DA said the officers knew of a warrant for Blake for previous violence and described the struggle during his attempted arrest, which included tasing Blake multiple times with no effect.
Multiple officers try to grab his arms and secure him so he can be cuffed. He admits at one point, officers were trying to handcuff me, but I was able to get up.
Prosecutors say Blake tried to enter a vehicle holding a knife. Cell phone video captured Sheskey shooting Blake in the back. Blake's 3 young children were in the back seat.
It is absolutely incontrovertible that Jacob Blake was armed with a knife during this encounter. Jacob Blake, in all of the times he spoke to DCI, admits he possessed a knife.
We spoke with Blake's father about his son having a weapon.
He was moving away from the officer. He wasn't a threat to that officer.
As illustrated by his back being pointed towards the officer, is that what you're saying?
As illustrated by where the bullets entered.
Investigators say they found a knife on the floor of the car.
How is Jacob doing?
He's dealing with his situation appropriately. He's where he should be after being shot 7 times.
Then 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse is charged with shooting 3 people during the early days of the Blake protests with an assault-type rifle, killing 2. On Tuesday, the now 18-year-old Rittenhouse entered a not guilty plea to all charges in a virtual court hearing, claiming self-defense. He remains free on a $2 million bond.
Issues of bail remain in full force and effect. Do you understand that, Mr. Rittenhouse?
Yes, sir.
All right, so for more on this, let's bring in Derrick Johnson. He's the president and CEO of the NAACP. Thank you so much for joining us. I guess, my first question really is just to get your response to the conclusion. It took 5 months with a special sort of inquiry, as I understand it, and this is the conclusion that we've come to, no charges.
It's unfortunate. The claim of self-defense, there has to be an offense that you're defending against. And nothing in these videos show that Jacob Blake was seeking to cause harm, attack these officers. In fact, anytime you're shooting someone 7 times in their back, it shows you that the person is going away from you. The question of a knife, when you look at his hands, you don't see him positioning the knife to cause any harm. But what's most shocking about this, in this same jurisdiction, you have a young man with an assault rifle in the middle of the night who should not be there, who killed 2 people, and now he's out free, able to walk, not paralyzed, while you have an individual who actually stopped to break up a fight, who was paralyzed for life at home. This is not justice. And in NAACP, we're going to call on the U.S. Attorney to investigate and bring charges.
So then, Derrick, what do you make of the fact that there were no charges pressed against Mr. Blake, despite the police saying he was carrying a knife and that they claim he was trying to stab an officer? Is that some sort of recognition on their part that perhaps they were in the wrong?
It's contradictory at best. If, in fact, he was committing an offense or pose a threat to the officers, he would have been charged. They had nothing to charge him on. Therefore, what they're doing now is inconsistent with their prior decision not to charge him with the crime, because he wasn't committing a crime. He wasn't posing a threat. He did not cause the officers to feel as if their life was in danger. They used deadly force in retaliation to someone who was walking away in broad daylight. Everyone can see for their eyes, he was not causing any harm. He was not posing a threat. And yet there are no charges. This is not justice. This is an unfortunate reality that far too many young black kids will have to see, that this is what the policing in their community look like. This cannot go on.
You know, you've met with President-elect Joe Biden a little over a week ago, and you're asking the administration to create a cabinet-level position to focus on racial justice. There are far too many names at this point to mention when it comes to incidents like this. We've talked about this over and over again. And at this point, it seems like the only sort of avenue is to use the criminal justice system to reform itself. That's clearly not working. Tell me why you think a cabinet-level position would have the most impact.
You know, when you look at scenarios like this, it's obvious that we have not addressed the question of race or the caste system that we have embedded in our society in public policy. There needs to be someone to review our public policy to ensure there is racial equity, to ensure that there are justices brought against incidents such as this. In fact, the president-elect now have a better opportunity to put in place someone to head up the Justice Department who is a known factor, someone who can walk in the door and command the respect and the confidence of the employees, someone who can walk in the door and understand that the work of the Obama administration around holding police agencies accountable must continue. You know, this is no different than a Freddie Gray or Michael Brown, or for that matter, George Floyd. This is an incident that happened in broad daylight with cameras. Jacob Blake was not causing any threat to anyone. Should he have complied? Probably so. Should he have just dropped anything that he could have had in his hand? Probably so. Should he put his hands behind his head? That would have been ideal. But the fact of the matter is, deadly force was used against an individual where there was no present danger to their person. This is not justice, and we have to do better as a nation.
So outside of that position, let me get your take on where we are potentially with control of the House and the United States Senate. What do you see policy-wise? What do you want to hear from leaders in the days ahead?
Well, this is an opportunity for us to undo all the harm that the current administration has done to our democracy, to our citizens. This is an opportunity to reform our election administration system so we can take the partisanship out of the basic nature of why we're a democracy. It is the ability of each individual who are legitimate voters to fully participate unencumbered with vote suppression methods. This is an opportunity to reform that system. This is an opportunity to begin to address the economic harm this administration have done and address the health risk they've put us in. Over 300,000 people have harmed. Now we have that time. We have less than 2 years to get it right. It's a very thin margin in the Senate. It's a thinner margin in the House, but it's an opportunity for Americans to see themselves as one nation and to do so in ways in which we can bring more prosperity to all citizens and not just an elite few.
You know, we've talked before about how you want to see policies that are proactive and will lead to change. And you are less concerned with whether you've got an R or a D on your chest or the color of your skin. You want to see the policies that are going to improve the quality of life for African Americans in this country. That being said, very historic win in Georgia, projected win, I should say, in Georgia right now. Reverend Raphael Warnock is claiming victory. It is still projected, but at this point, you know, it looks like the seat is going to him. And so can you talk about what that means, particularly an African-American man coming from Georgia and representing that state in the Senate?
Well, it is significant. We're looking at a state that was a part of the former Confederacy, the Southern Bloc. And many individuals in that state try to continue a level of second-class citizenship for individuals like Senator-elect Warnock, so that he would not have the opportunity that we are witnessing today. Someone who attended an HBCU and had enough faith through his convictions to put his name on the ballot. It is historic, but it's that Southern Bloc, that that tool where many individuals who were part of the Confederacy mindset used race as a tool to suppress the will of people. Now we're overcoming that. And perhaps we can do so in a way in which this nation could be a whole nation, a more productive nation, because we are opening up opportunities for more citizens to really bring forth their tools, skills, and talents. And that's what can make this nation even greater. That is what has made this nation what it is.
So where do we go from here? Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley tweeted yesterday about the news, saying a system created out of white supremacy cannot be reformed. What do you make of that response?
I think it's correct. If white supremacy is the bedrock of what we are doing, then we must rip it out. And what does that mean to me? That means the public policy that we have built out was done with malicious intent or with blind neglect. And where we have those public policies in place, we need to review them and take them out and reestablish a new policy landscape that's more inclusive of all of the citizens and not just some of the citizens.
All right, Derrick, always great to have you. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it as always.
Thank you.